The Big Valley was more than a story about loyalty and frontier justice. It quietly carried the cruel secrets of its own cast. Behind the fame were cancer battles, heartbreaking losses, and final chapters far darker than fiction. Join us as we reveal who they truly became by 2026. Richard Long as Jared Barkley. Jared Barkley, the educated attorney and eldest son of the Barkley family in the Big Valley, was played by Richard Long. At 38 years old, he portrayed the calm strategist who confronted injustice with reason instead of force. His composure anchored the Western drama. Born Richard McCord Long on December 17, 1927, in Chicago, Illinois, he carried a weakened heart from severe childhood pneumonia. He entered films in the 1940s with Tomorrow is Forever and The Stranger, then built television recognition in Bourbon Street Beat and 77 Sunset Strip. Military service during the Korean War interrupted his career, delaying his rise. By the time he reached the Big Valley, he was already fighting a condition few viewers knew about. His first marriage ended in tragedy. In 1954, he married actress Susan Ball after she had lost a leg to cancer. She died of lung cancer 14 months later at only 21. In 1957, he married Mara Corday and had 3 children. But in 1961, he was arrested after she accused him of assault while he was intoxicated. She declined to press charges and later reconciled with him. The scandal and earlier loss marked his adult life. Heart disease followed him relentlessly. He suffered a heart attack in 1961 and endured repeated cardiac episodes while continuing to act in projects such as House on Haunted Hill and later Nanny and the Professor. Hospitalizations became frequent. His condition never stabilized. Finally, he died at 47 on December 21, 1974, from a myocardial infarction following recurring heart complications. He left behind Mara Corday and their 3 children, with an estimated net worth of about $2 million from steady film and television work. The composed lawyer of the Big Valley was, in reality, living on borrowed time. Barbara Stanwyck as Victoria Barkley. Victoria Barkley, the commanding widow and head of the Barkley Ranch in the Big Valley, was portrayed by Barbara Stanwyck. At 58 years old, she played a woman who controlled the land, the fortune, and the fate of her children. Her authority defined the series. Born Ruby Catherine Stevens on July 16, 1907, in Brooklyn, New York, she was orphaned almost instantly by tragedy. Her mother died after a streetcar accident when Barbara was 4, and her father abandoned the family before later dying during an epidemic tied to work at the Panama Canal. She was sent through foster homes and separated from siblings, growing up without stability. That brutal beginning forged the intensity later seen in Stella Dallas and the cold precision of Double Indemnity, performances that earned 4 Academy Award nominations. Her marriages were marked by loss and fracture. In 1928, she married Frank Fay. The union deteriorated amid reports of abuse and ended in divorce in 1935, leaving behind an adopted son who later became estranged. In 1939, she married Robert Taylor under studio pressure. They divorced in 1950, yet she continued to call him the love of her life. When Robert Taylor died in 1969, she was shattered and temporarily withdrew from work despite her ongoing acclaim, including Emmy recognition for The Big Valley. Her body carried the consequences of decades of smoking that began at age 9. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease slowly restricted her lungs, and in 1982, while filming The Thornbirds, heavy special effects smoke triggered severe bronchitis that worsened her condition. In 1981, she survived a violent home invasion in Beverly Hills, struck on the head, and robbed of $40,000 in jewelry. Sadly, she died at 82 on January 20, 1990, from congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica. She requested no funeral. Her ashes were scattered from a helicopter over Lone Pine, California. At her death, Her net worth was estimated at around $10 million. Peter Breck as Nick Barkley. Nick Barkley, the hot-headed ranch foreman and fiercely loyal second son in the Big Valley, was played by Peter Breck. At 36 years old, he was the explosive defender of the Barkley empire. His intensity gave the series its raw edge. Born Joseph Peter Breck on March 13, 1929, in Rochester, New York, he grew up in a fractured household after his parents divorced when he was 8. He was raised largely by grandparents while his jazz musician father traveled, and he was separated from his younger brother for over 2 decades before a chance television sighting reunited them. He had already proven himself in westerns like Black Saddle and as Doc Holliday on Maverick, while films such as Shock Corridor revealed a darker, more psychological side of his talent. In 1960, he married dancer Diane Bourne, and together they had a son, Christopher. That family joy later turned into unimaginable grief when Christopher died of leukemia at just 30 years old. The loss marked him deeply, yet he continued working, later moving to Vancouver where he built the Breck Academy, teaching young actors and reshaping his career from performer to mentor. His professional life continued with roles in projects like The New Batman Adventures, but the personal wound never disappeared. By 2010, dementia began to erase the man who once commanded the screen with ferocity. His wife announced that he could no longer sign autographs, though he still read letters from fans who remembered him clearly even as his own memory faded. The illness progressed quietly over 2 years, gradually stripping away recognition and independence. The once fiery Nick Barkley was now battling a condition that silenced him without gunfire. Sadly, he died at 82 on February 6, 2012, in Vancouver, British Columbia, from complications of dementia. He left behind Diane Bourne and an estimated net worth of about $5 million earned through decades of acting and teaching. Douglas Kennedy as Sheriff Fred Madden. Sheriff Fred Madden, the steady lawman enforcing order in the Big Valley, was portrayed by Douglas Kennedy. At 50 years old, he played a sheriff who confronted chaos without hesitation. His presence reinforced the rule of law within the Barkley world. Born Douglas Richards Kennedy on September 14, 1915, in New York, he entered Hollywood in the mid-1930s and quickly built momentum with films like G-Men and The Ghost Breakers. His rise was abruptly halted when he served from 1940 to 1945 as a major in the U.S. Army Signal Corps and Army Intelligence during World War II. After the war, he returned to film and television, appearing in Dark Passage, Invaders from Mars, and later starring in the series Steve Donovan, Western Marshal. The interruption cost him years of peak visibility, yet he rebuilt his career through more than 190 screen roles. He married Isabel Russell, and they built a family life while he continued working steadily in westerns and crime dramas. Through the 1950s and 1960s, he became a familiar face on television, appearing repeatedly on Perry Mason, Gunsmoke, and Bonanza. His marriage endured while his career evolved from studio contracts to television regularity. In the early 1970s, he continued guest appearances, including roles on Hawaii Five-0. While filming in Honolulu, he was diagnosed with cancer. The illness progressed rapidly, cutting short ongoing work. His final appearances were completed under the shadow of a diagnosis he could not overcome. Finally, he died at 57 on August 10, 1973, in Honolulu, Hawaii, from cancer while still associated with Hawaii Five-0. He was interred at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $1 million, earned from nearly 4 decades of consistent work. Napoleon Whiting as Silas, the loyal houseman and steady guardian inside the Barkley mansion in the Big Valley, was portrayed by Napoleon Whiting. At 55 years old, he played a man who witnessed everything yet spoke with restraint and dignity. His quiet strength anchored the Barkley family's private world. Born September 21, 1910, in Canton, Mississippi, he built a career in an era that rarely offered black actors leading roles. Hollywood frequently cast him as a butler or servant, a pattern seen in major productions like Giant and Imitation of Life. Even when appearing in respected films such as The Big Clock and later Farewell, My Lovely, he was often uncredited or confined to the margins. As the industry evolved through the 1960s and 1970s, he continued appearing in films like Black Samson and Every Girl Should Have One, maintaining steady employment when many character actors faded away. On television, his presence in the Big Valley became his most recognizable work, giving him a lasting association with one of the era's most popular westerns. In the later years of his career, he remained active in supporting roles, returning to crime dramas and genre films that relied on experienced character actors. Though rarely the headline name, he appeared repeatedly in productions that became cult favorites. Sadly, he died at 74 on October 22, 1984, in Los Angeles, California. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed. He left behind an estimated net worth of about $500,000 from a lifetime of steady supporting performances. Charles Briles as Eugene Barclay. Eugene Barclay, the youngest Barclay son and aspiring medical student in the Big Valley, was played by Charles Briles. At 20 years old, he portrayed a young man preparing for a future beyond ranch life. His presence added youth and ambition to the Barclay household. Born December 17, 1945 in Los Angeles, California, he entered acting through local theater before landing the role that would define his screen identity. His breakthrough came with The Big Valley, but just as the show gained momentum, he received a draft notice in 1965. The sudden call to serve in the California Army National Guard forced him to leave the series, and his character was written out with the explanation that Eugene had gone to study medicine in Berkeley. The interruption ended his television trajectory almost as quickly as it began. He married Kathy Briles and redirected his professional life after military service. Rather than return to on-screen prominence, he worked behind the scenes as a television screenwriter and later as a stage director in Southern California. He also built a career producing and writing for Northrop Corporation, shifting from entertainment to corporate production. The early promise of a television career transformed into steady, quieter professional work. In later years, health issues emerged. Congestive heart failure gradually weakened him. The condition advanced despite his relatively private lifestyle away from Hollywood's spotlight. His final years were marked more by health management than public appearances. Charles Briles died at 70 on June 12, 2016, in Portland, Oregon, from congestive heart failure. He left behind his wife Kathy Briles and an estimated net worth of about $1 million from writing, directing, and corporate production work. Kevin Hagen as Amos Farrell. Amos Farrell, a recurring frontier figure in the Big Valley, was played by Kevin Hagen. At 37 years old, he portrayed a determined man navigating the harsh realities of Western life. He brought measured intensity to each appearance. His presence added tension and moral conflict to the series. Born April 3, 1928, in Chicago, Illinois, he faced early instability after his father left the family. A promising football career ended with injury, forcing him to redirect his ambitions toward acting. He built a solid career through roles in Shenandoah and recurring appearances in The Twilight Zone and Mission Impossible. His most enduring fame came later as Dr. Hiram Baker in Little House on the Prairie, where he became a trusted, compassionate figure on television. His personal life reflected strain and reinvention. His first marriage ended in divorce, leaving him without children. In 1993, he married Jan Hagen, beginning a later chapter built on stability rather than early turbulence. Professionally, he continued appearing in projects like Land of the Giants and MASH, maintaining steady work across decades. In 2004, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. The disease progressed rapidly, weakening him within a year. After more than 100 roles, his career closed under the shadow of aggressive illness that offered little time for recovery. Kevin Hagen died at 77 on July 9, 2005, from esophageal cancer. His estimated net worth was around $2 million, earned through a long television career. The man who portrayed healers and authority figures on screen ultimately faced a diagnosis no script could soften. Bing Russell as Clint, the rugged drifter and recurring Western presence in the Big Valley, was portrayed by Bing Russell. At 39 years old, he was the hardened outsider who stepped into the frontier conflicts with quiet toughness. His screen presence carried the grit of a seasoned rider. Born Neil Oliver Russell on May 5, 1926, in Brattleboro, Vermont, he grew up around baseball diamonds and New York Yankees legends before Hollywood called. He studied business at Dartmouth but pursued acting, building recognition as Deputy Clem Foster in Bonanza and appearing in The Magnificent Seven. His face became familiar across Western television, Gunsmoke, The Twilight Zone, and Little House on the Prairie, as he moved steadily between film and TV. He married Louise Lulu Crone in 1946, and together they raised 4 children, including Kurt Russell. While his son rose to international stardom, Bing carved his own unconventional legacy by purchasing the independent Portland Mavericks baseball team in 1973. He turned the team into a cultural phenomenon, fighting Major League Baseball's control and winning arbitration after the franchise was reclaimed. The stress of juggling acting, business battles, and family responsibilities weighed heavily, even as he earned Sporting News Minor League Executive of the Year in 1974. Cancer eventually overtook him. After years balancing entertainment and baseball, complications from the disease advanced in his later life. His strength faded as treatments intensified. Sadly, he died at 76 on April 8, 2003, in Thousand Oaks, California, from complications of cancer. He left behind an estimated net worth of about $5 million from acting and baseball ownership. Decades later, he was inducted into the Hall of Great Westerners in 2020, a posthumous acknowledgement of a life lived across 2 American arenas, film and sport. Harlon Ward as Arthur Kleber. Arthur Kleber, a recurring authority figure in the Big Valley, was portrayed by Harlon Ward. At 48 years old, he played men of official power within frontier conflicts. His roles often embodied order amid unrest. Born Harlon Ward Lufkin on November 6, 1917, in Los Angeles County, California, he served in Army Special Forces during World War II before returning to Hollywood. He appeared in films such as The Monster That Challenged the World, and later in television staples like Gunsmoke and The Rockford Files. His steady character work placed him consistently in supporting roles through the 1950s and 1960s. His marriages were marked by instability. He married Carolyn Frances Sherwood in 1949, and the marriage ended in divorce in 1957, producing 1 daughter. In 1958, he married Barbara Grace Whitaker. That marriage also ended in divorce by 1963. The pattern of separation paralleled a career built on recurring appearances rather than leading roles. Harlon Ward died at 62 on March 13, 1980, in Los Angeles County, California. His estimated net worth was around $800,000, accumulated through decades of supporting performances. A steady presence in westerns and crime dramas, he exited quietly, leaving behind a legacy of dependable character work. Mark Tapscott as Bates, a recurring supporting figure in the Big Valley, was portrayed by Mark Tapscott. At 41 years old, he represented steady authority within the Western landscape. His presence added structural weight to the series. Born December 15, 1924, in Bellflower, California, he served in the United States Marines during both World War II and the Korean War before pursuing higher education at the University of Oregon. His acting career flourished in television, most notably as Bob Anderson on the long-running soap opera Days of Our Lives, where he became a regular face throughout the 1970s. He also appeared in numerous supporting television roles that sustained his visibility across decades. He married Frances May Farrell in 1945, and they had a daughter before Frances died in 1969, leaving him widowed. In 1970, he remarried Sybil L. Line, rebuilding his personal life after loss. The death of his first wife deeply affected him, occurring during a period when his television career was gaining stability. Health issues later surfaced, culminating in a diagnosis of lung cancer. The illness progressed during the early 1990s, weakening him as his screen appearances slowed. His long-standing presence on daytime television gradually came to an end as his condition worsened. Mark Tapscott died at 68 on September 10, 1993, from lung cancer. He left behind his second wife and family, with an estimated net worth of about $700,000 accumulated from years in film and television. Paul Sorenson as Blacksmith. Blacksmith, the rugged town craftsman in the Big Valley, was portrayed by Paul Sorenson. At 39 years old, he embodied the steady working man of the frontier. His roles reinforced the hard-edged realism of the series. Born February 16, 1926, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, he moved to Hollywood in 1945 and trained at the Pasadena Playhouse before serving 15 months with the U.S. Army's 25th Division during the Korean War. Returning to California, he built a long television career that spanned decades, appearing in The Brady Bunch and holding a recurring role on Dallas. He was frequently cast in westerns and as law enforcement officers, appearing in hundreds of productions that made him a dependable face on American television. He married Jacqueline May in 1957, and together they raised 2 sons. Family life later turned into grief when one of his children passed away, a loss that marked his later years deeply. Alongside acting, he and his wife helped run the Original Actors Workshop, mentoring performers and sustaining a creative community. After Jacqueline's death in 2002, he withdrew further from public life. In his later years, cancer became his final battle. After retiring from acting in the late 1980s and early 1990s, he faced declining health as the illness progressed. Treatments followed, but the disease advanced steadily. Finally, he died at 82 on July 17, 2008, in Cardiff-by-the-Sea, California, from cancer. He left behind an estimated net worth of about $1 million earned through decades of television and film work. Lee Majors as Heath Barkley. At 26 years old in 1965, he portrayed Heath Barkley in the Big Valley. Heath was the illegitimate son of Tom Barkley, fighting for recognition inside a powerful ranching family. The role demanded quiet intensity and restrained anger. It became the performance that introduced Lee Majors to national television audiences. Lee Majors was born Harvey Lee Yeary on April 23, 1939, in Wyandotte, Michigan. Tragedy defined him before memory could form. His father died in an industrial accident months before his birth, and his mother was killed in a car crash when he was not yet 2. Adopted by relatives in Kentucky, he built his identity around football, believing athletics would secure his future. A devastating back injury left him temporarily paralyzed and ended that dream, forcing him to abandon sports and turn to acting. That detour led him to global fame in The $6 Million Man, a role that transformed him into an international icon. Success did not stabilize his personal life. He married Kathy Robinson in 1961, but the marriage ended in 1964. His 1973 marriage to Farrah Fawcett collapsed publicly in 1982 under relentless media pressure, and a later marriage to Karen Velez ended in 1994. She died in 2023. Emotional strain followed him even at the height of his fame on The Fall Guy, where he became both star and producer. In 2003, he underwent heart bypass surgery, a serious health crisis that forced him to confront mortality. Now, Lee Majors is 87 years old. He remains a respected television legend, occasionally appearing at industry events and reunions. With an estimated net worth of about $15 million earned through decades of television dominance, he stands as proof that survival, not perfection, defined his life. Linda Evans as Audra Barkley. Linda Evans was 23 years old when she portrayed Audra Barkley in The Big Valley. Audra was the spirited daughter of Victoria Barkley, strong-willed yet vulnerable within a powerful frontier family. The role placed her at the emotional center of the ranch's conflicts. It marked the beginning of Linda Evans's rise to stardom. Linda Evans was born Linda Evenstad on November 18, 1942, in Hartford, Connecticut. Raised in a family of performers, she struggled with shyness so severe that acting classes became therapy. That vulnerability shaped her screen presence. After The Big Valley, she built momentum through guest roles before achieving massive fame as Crystal Carrington in Dynasty, a series that became the #1 show in America. She won a Golden Globe in 1982 and received multiple Emmy and Golden Globe nominations, cementing her status as a television powerhouse. Her private life, however, unraveled publicly. She married John Derek in 1968, only to see the marriage collapse in 1974 when he left her for a teenager who later became Bo Derek, a betrayal that shattered her confidence. A second marriage to Stan Herman also ended in divorce. Years later, she was diagnosed with idiopathic edema, a painful and confusing medical condition that led her to alternative healing. In 2014, she was arrested for driving under the influence of prescription medication, a moment that shocked longtime fans. The pressures of fame and health challenges pushed her into semi-retirement after Dynasty, though she later returned in projects such as Swan Song in 2021. She remained recognized by a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and multiple People's Choice Awards, but the emotional toll of heartbreak and illness never fully disappeared. Today, Linda Evans is 84 years old. She lives a quieter life, occasionally stepping back into public view while reflecting on a career that reshaped primetime television. With an estimated net worth of around $20 million from decades of television success, endorsements, and books, she remains one of the defining faces of 1980s drama. The stories behind the passing of the Big Valley cast reveal more than dates and causes. They expose lives marked by loss, illness, heartbreak, and quiet battles the cameras never captured. Fame once made them unforgettable, but time proved that even television legends are not immune to tragedy. Which loss shocked you the most, and whose story stayed with you the longest? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more untold Hollywood stories that history tried to soften, make sure to like this video and subscribe for the next deep dive.